Welcome back to the program. Joining me now, Ben Kutylo. He is the Executive Director of Forward Arkansas. Ben, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
For those who do not know what Forward Arkansas is, you're a nonprofit. You're trying to advance a lot of things in the education front, and there's a lot of people doing that right now in Arkansas. Give us a little background on Forward Arkansas and what you do on a daily basis.
Sure. Well, Forward Arkansas was established in 2015 by the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, the Walton Family Foundation. Those two organizations came together intentionally to create a nonpartisan organization that can really act as a strategic partner for the state of Arkansas, an external strategic partner. So that's really where we focus the majority of our efforts, on those things that matter most for students. So really student-centered, but supporting the state really at all levels and communities strategically and how they move forward to address those most important priorities to improve student outcomes.
That includes building coalitions, helping put listening tours together, doing some research. And one of the things that kind of comports with all that is you guys have just released your State of Education in Arkansas for 2023 report, which we're going to dive into today. The biggest takeaway, I think, just from the top of what I read there, COVID-19 set us back. How far back do you think it set education in Arkansas?
Well, I want to say first that even before COVID-19, we weren't in a good place. So we use third grade reading scores as an indicator, and we do so in the report. And so before COVID-19 in 2018-19, just 41% of third grade students were reading across the state. So already there, that's far from where we want to be as a state. But then, COVID hit began in 2020. And, as we look at 2021 data, there was a sharp decline. So 36% at that point of third grade students were reading proficiently. There was a slight rebound, but still in 21-22, we're at 38% of Arkansas students, third graders, reading proficiently. So it did set us back.
And you said 30%, correct? Because that's the number that I think I've recently seen on the NAES Nations Report Card.
If we're looking at those are NAEP scores, I believe.
Yes.
We were looking, the data I'm referring to is ACT Aspire scores here in Arkansas.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what some other findings from the report there. Improving literacy, which we're talking about here, and improving the state's focus on the science of reading. This is something that it looks like Governor Sarah Sanders' omnibus education bill is going to make a pretty large investment in. As a matter of fact, on Wednesday, she discussed adding 120 literacy teachers that will spread out across the state. That's got to help move the needle. Is this the type of thing that needs to be done? Are there other things that need to be done?
Yeah, I think, the state has already laid some groundwork. In 2017, there was a, legislative commitment to the science of reading, and an acknowledgement of the need to improve literacy in the state. We know that strategy, neighboring states, Mississippi, Tennessee, have made huge progress in the last 10 years, kind of focusing on that strategy. And I think, in addition to focusing on the science of reading as a primary instructional strategy, adding those mentors, adding that support as schools and teachers make that shift is critical. I think also really intense identification of students that are struggling and additional interventions there to address those students and accelerate learning. And then, other states, I think in our report, we talk about exploring this. There are implications to this, but, there are promotion policies as well that neighboring states have utilized where students that aren't proficient in third grade, aren't promoted to fourth grade. So again, we're not necessarily saying that's something we should do, but it's something we should explore. And that is a part of how those states made progress.
I want to set the expectation game. I've had this conversation several times before. This 36% proficiency that you mentioned, the 30% that I mentioned on the NAEP scoring system there. no state in the United States does a very good job of this. I mean, I looked at the number one state in 2022 on those NAEP rankings was Massachusetts at 43%. I mean, still nothing to brag about, you know. I mean, less than 50% are not reading proficiently by the
Yeah.
time they reach the fourth grade. So, how much can we really move that needle? What should the expectation be? I'm not saying we shouldn't invest in it and do it. Trust me, it's something that's critical, but I just wonder how we move the needle beyond 50% or into some higher levels.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. There's not a simple answer. But I think, we know that third grade literacy, third grade reading proficiency is one of the strongest indicators of later life outcomes. I think it's hard to say how far we can get, but I think a focus on a research-backed, proven strategy like the science of reading, and really cohering around that strategy, and then moving forward very strategically is what's going to help us make dramatic progress, and hopefully progress like some neighboring states have made.
Another big issue, the report mentions this. It is certainly something that a lot of other folks that are stakeholders in this have talked about for a couple of years here. We have an early childhood and a pre-K deficiency in the state of Arkansas. We don't have as many early childhood teachers as we should. They don't get paid very well. The quality of early childhood is suspect, and it's all over the map in terms of quality levels. Same thing for pre-K. Governor Sanders, again, in her omnibus education bill that will be revealed, at least is indicating there's going to be some pretty significant investments in that. What's the report say of where we're at today? What do you think is realistic for moving that needle?
Yeah, I think we are, again, it's an area where we have made some foundational progress, I'll say, in the last 5 to 8 years. But we really need to expand access and improve quality across the state. And I think there are barriers, especially in some communities across the state, to that access. Things like, first, available options, transportation, other things. Those are barriers that we need to address. And if we're going to expand capacity, talent, so teaching talent in that space, we need more and more high quality early learning teachers as well. That's something that we're going to have to focus on if we're going to provide high quality early learning options to everybody across the state.
These are big ticket items. I don't want to downplay that. These are major investments to move things in the right direction.
Huge. Yeah.
All right. Another thing that you guys talk about in the report is kind of the workforce education for students graduating from high school, being prepared to enter careers if they're not going to do secondary education. Where are we kind of statistically in that? How many kids are in that universe? And do you think that there are enough programs out there right now to move folks into some of those career pathways?
Yeah. So how we think of it and how we talk about it in this report is that every kid is in that universe. One of the primary goals of education has to be preparing kids to get a good job where they can earn a living wage. And so, really integrating how we're thinking about career readiness to the core learning experience and instruction that kids have in schools. That's a priority. We have to integrate those. So it's really for everyone. And so, as we think about that, really we need to expand the quality of programs like career and technical education and work-based learning. But really every student needs access to, exposure to diverse career opportunities, and that needs to start happening early on. And students need that option. We think about post-secondary. That's just another step on the pathway to a career. So that's kind of how we think of it. And we need I think we need a clear vision for career education, career readiness as a state, and that needs to be integrated with our overall vision for education.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I saw anything about this in the report, but it is part of the education debate. So I kind of want to tap your brain on this, and that is vouchers, which I think Governor Sanders is calling education freedom accounts. It's the equivalent of education savings accounts. Is this something that you guys have taken some sort of position in? Is this something that you've looked at and this, tried to make some sort of assessment of whether or not this could be a game changer in some way, or is it something that you stay neutral on because it's too radioactive to get in the middle of it?
Yeah. Well, so here's how we approached it. We focus in this report, in this process, we looked at economic data, we looked at education data, we looked at case studies across the state, but really, the biggest part of this process over the state of education in Arkansas process over the last 8 months was talking to Arkansans and getting feedback. And really, so we talked to over 3,500 folks across the state. And the question that we asked them, the primary question that we asked them is, what outcomes, what do they want for their students? And what are the primary learning needs? What are the most important things that they need to learn in school or through their education to get to those outcomes? And so for us, how we think about that is regardless of the type of school that a student goes to, those things need to be in place. And the conditions to help students get there need to be in place. So that's in traditional public schools, open enrollment charter schools, home schools, wherever, those learning needs are the same. And, Arkansans, in our research and in our engagement, they agree on those things. And so that's where we focus as an organization, really on where students are and improving those options and focusing on those priorities where students are.
All right, you get a chance here, free plug for where people can go to read more of this report and learn more about what Forward Arkansas does. What's the website?
Sure, forwardarkansas.org. It should be very, very prominent on that page. And so what you'll find there is you can download the full report. There's a report summary, and then also a pretty dynamic website that allows folks to navigate through the information, all of the information and data and recommendations that we gathered and kind of produced as a part of this process. So that is the place to go. And if anyone has additional thoughts or questions, they're welcome to reach out to us too.
All right. Ben Kutylo, he is the Executive Director of Forward Arkansas. Thank you for your time and your insight. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.